Thank you, Kianga. Now we'll hear from Danita Bates, a school district parent and community activist.
Again, I'm going to mention my name's Danita Bates. I'm an activist and organizer in North Philadelphia and a parent first. Unfortunately, as we argued through the whole school closing process, that the SRC Commission board members and the school district officials would not listen to the people, the parents, and the community and the students in the Philadelphia School District. And they proved it on March the 7th. Unfortunately, I have to say, there are many folks in Philadelphia that are getting discouraged. Please do not get discouraged. The fight is just beginning. We still have to continue to fight, get the discouragement out, take the discouragement out in fighting. Starting with the the rally going to Harrisburg on March 19th. That's Wednesday, March 19th, leaving 4:40 at 7:30 a.m. I will leave information here for that march, have emails out, and get that information out on Word radio station as well. So that information will be out, and we're planning to march all the way up to August to the governor's office. Governor Corbett, who is being destructive, has been destructive to the city, not only to the city, the school, the education system is in a distress nationwide. So we're nationally going to get together and we're going to fight this fight all the way up to DC, as long as it takes for us to get this education policies and procedures together, not only for our black community and our black children, but the education policies and all being equal. Not only do I want to say we still need the parent cooperation and participation in schools that are closing, schools that are not closing. It's going to affect you negatively if your school is closing or not. Charter schools are in the closings as well. And I must say, the school district board is still not publicly announcing and admitting that there are 66 schools in total that was in the plans of closing. Only the first 37 was planned to close this year. So now it's down to 27. So we'll still have to fight for the 23. We still have to fight for those 23 schools to stay open, because there's still too many, and we have to still fight and stand up that this process won't happen again in the next 2 years. Now they're coming after Head Start. There was a meeting I was in yesterday. They're planning to close all Head Start in public schools, and they want you to go to the CCIS program if you're eligible for your child to go to a public school. Unacceptable. So stop sitting around being discouraged and saying everything is done. It's not done. It's not in stone. People is pressure, and until the people stand up, Philadelphia, let this governor know we are sick and tired. We're coming to fight, and the fight is not over. So please, we need the support to Harrisburg and to Washington, D.C., not only for education, for the AVI bill that's going on, the housing, the sequestration, and all that. It's going to affect not only the black poor community, it's going to affect the middle class, it's going to affect senior citizens, it's going to affect disability, mental health. We got to get together. We have to stand up and come together. Really, it's just frustrating right now, but we need to come together. Everyone, all over this city, all over this nation, all over this state, we have to stand up and let the government know that Philadelphia is not going away. We're here to fight, and every other state that needs to fight with us. Thank you.
Uhuru Danita, thank you. Our next speaker is Harris Daniels, Philadelphia chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, an organization working under the leadership of the Uhuru Movement. Harris.
Uhuru, stop the school closings. Stop the school closings. Justice and reparations for the African community in Philadelphia and worldwide. Uhuru, today. And as everyone has said, Uhuru means freedom. My name is Harris Daniels. I'm the local chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement here in Philadelphia. and we fully, unconditionally unite with the African People's Education and Defense Fund, International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, and other community partners in their demands for the African community to have economic development instead of police containment as a public policy. We reject the attacks and the vicious criminalization of the African community that's been expressed through these school closings, the intensified police containment and brutality of African people and the African community in this city, and most recently, the vicious, hostile Philadelphia Magazine cover article, Being White in Philly. As an organization of white people and other allies working under the leadership of the African-led Uhuru movement, we believe it is high time for us to examine what it really means to be white in Philadelphia, a city where Africans face horrendous conditions of poverty, police violence, mass incarceration, and healthcare disparities, and how we as white people can take an active role in rectifying the ever-widening racial divide between whites and Africans in this city and in this country at large. Much of this is seen in the gentrification of areas like North Philly and West Philly, especially facilitated by Temple University and the University of Pennsylvania. Gentrification is able to move forward rapidly due to a long-standing unity between white homeowners and the police. Much destruction to African communities is done under the guise of making the neighborhood quote-unquote safer and quote-unquote better while pushing out the black community. But in reality, this keeps the communities unsafe and the race relations hostile. We need to work together to solve this. If everyone in Philadelphia opposes school closings, the poverty, the conditions and disparities in health and education and economic development, and this police brutality and mass imprisonment, it would have to end. As the speakers before me have really put out, showing through the statistics, Africans in Philadelphia live in abject poverty and face just incredible conditions imposed on them by this government. With one hand, the government forces Africans out of their communities and into conditions of poverty and exploitation, and with the other hand, they contain the African community through the imposition of police, with over a third of the budget going to police prisons and courts in the city. The Being White in Philadelphia article in Philadelphia Magazine that came out last week assumes that the entire black community in North Philly is criminal and dangerous. But the reality is that the 22nd and 39th District Police have already been exposed and even imprisoned for the massive frame-ups and thousands of African people in that exact area of North Philly, planting drugs, falsely testifying against Africans, sending them to prison, stealing their money from individuals, including grandmothers and from corner bodegas. This scandal was actually opened up by a Temple University student who was framed himself for drugs planted on him by the police. Hundreds of young African and Puerto Rican men have been murdered by these same police in the past 30 years. A cop was just found not guilty of punching a Puerto Rican woman in the face, caught on video in the Puerto Rican Day Parade in Philadelphia. This has to end. We have to demand a stop for this from the white community. Yes. The real criminals and drug dealers, the bankers, politicians, and pharmaceutical industry executives who hide behind neckties and business suits never face a day in prison. We have to face the fact that while our white children are going to college, African children in this city are being locked down in droves in the children's prison in West Philly, known as the Youth Studies Center. As it was said, over 80% of whose inmates locked up African young men. White people own 22 times the assets of African families, even in this time of economic downturn. For white people, these are assets that were passed down from generation to generation. And as much as no one wants to talk about it, the conditions of the African community are the result of an unbroken reality resulting from the enslavement of a whole continent of people and the theft of land from the indigenous people, something that built this entire economic infrastructure of the U.S. and Philadelphia in particular. It runs very deep. The fact that the bodies of enslaved Africans lay under the so-called Liberty Bell tells the story that from the very beginning, the deck has always been stacked on the side of white people at the expense of Africans and the native people in this country. We could say that the gentrification began around 1492, when the first white people set foot in this hemisphere. Hundreds of years later, those who got the land, the jobs, and opportunities still justify our trampling on other communities by assuring ourselves that the victims of our gentrification are not truly human beings. But we have to take this stand and demand that we recognize the humanity and the right to a good life, to freedom, to liberation for African and all oppressed peoples. And recognizing this and talking about this and seeing the side of the African community is not so-called reverse racism. There's the relationship of the oppressor to the oppressed. If we want to rectify this relationship, we have to take a stand of genuine solidarity with the rights of African people to resist these foul conditions and fight for what is rightfully theirs: economic self-reliance and self-determination for African people. Our safety cannot come at the expense of bullet-ridden bodies of young Africans murdered by the police. If we want to have safe communities for all people and the ability to relate to each other and to Africans without fear or anger, then we have to start by facing the truth about what it really means to be white in Philly. It means living at the expense of African people. And we have a responsibility and an interest in supporting the struggles of African people working to overturn this reality. Only an organized African community fighting back can make that happen. The Uhuru movement is precisely that. And the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is part of that organization, created specifically for white people and other allies to join in solidarity with this positive vision by organizing in material solidarity with African liberation. How much longer can we expect to get away with living off the misery and poverty of African people? It's time for us to take action. So we invite all forward-thinking, freedom-loving people who wish to be active allies of the African community's struggle for freedom and self-determination to join us for this forum on April 5th, Being White in Philly in Solidarity with African Resistance, April 5th at 7 p.m. at the Uhuru Solidarity Center at 3733 Lancaster Avenue. There will be community speakers addressing all of these concerns, issues, and conditions and offering solutions, and we want your participation. Thank you. Solidarity with African Resistance. Uhuru.
Okay, thank you, Harris. Now I want to read a statement that was sent in support of this press conference by a holistic health professional who has partnered with APEDF in the African Health in Our Hands series and is also participating in building the second annual Uhuru Health Fest and Flea Market. This is a statement from Ajua Hawkins, Esquire, of the holistic health practice known as Ajua Love. Ajua states, unfortunately, our society values perpetual war and capitalism over teaching our youth anything of substance so that they can reach their God-given potential, such as who they truly are, how to think critically, and the way in which this global economy is really run. It is my dream that we would all wake up to the urgent issue that we are destroying the greatest force of positive change in this world, our children. Ajua Hawkins, Esquire, owner of Ajua Love. I'm also going to read a statement by another organization partnering with APEDF and the Health Fest. This statement comes from Bush Medicine Practice, which is an independent humanitarian initiative that provides free medical consultation and supplies to underserved, hard-to-reach populations worldwide, with a primary focus on preventive health care, maternity care, and nutrition. Bush Medical Partnership states, the Bush Medicine Partnership unites with the African People's Education and Defense Fund in the call to stop the closure of 23 public schools in Philadelphia. Closing schools does not improve education in any way. Rather, it destabilizes a system which is already stressed by lack of resources. Closing schools increases the disparities which exist in our city by making it more difficult and dangerous for children and teens living in impoverished regions in the city to obtain an education which is on par with the most affluent. It is well known that academic success is a predictor for the well-being of youth and their subsequent adult health. Closing schools, which inevitably leads to poorer attendance and performance, puts our children at risk for poor health outcomes. It disconnects them with vital health programs which aim to decrease hunger, violence, abuse, unsafe sex practices, and obesity. This perpetuates the cycle of poverty in our city, which inevitably leads to health problems, violence, and impoverishment among those with the lowest resources. Because we care, we stand together in opposition of these school closings to support healthy, safe, futures for our children. And this is from Natalie Beatty. She's on the board of directors at the Bush Medicine Partnership. So we want to thank them right now for providing that statement.